Me and Sherry shared a room, and our nightstand would be moved to the center of the room. And you would hear it. I mean, we would all be downstairs, and you would hear it dragging. You go up, and there it is in the middle of the floor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Odd Virginia. I am your host, Alex Koska. Way back in 1974, a family moved from the suburbs of Long Island, New York, down to a old farmhouse in Mount Solon, Virginia. And what they didn't know at the time is that the former residents were still very much present and active. This house was haunted, and to this day, members of that family still live in that house. So I was able to get 3 of them to come on down to the studio here and share their stories with us about what it's like to live with those who have passed away. Now, being 3 people at a time, and I only had 2 mics to mic them up, there is some difficulty in editing that, so you may hear a little bit of background noise, someone maybe jostling the mic or fidgeting in their seat. That's totally fine, because these stories are fantastic. So if you're not listening for it, you probably won't even notice it. So we're going to go ahead and get to that interview, but right before we do, I want to extend an invitation. If anyone else out there has a story of living in Virginia in a haunted house, you know of any creepy locations or weird folklore, get in touch with me. Send me an email at oddvirginia@protonmail.com. That's oddvirginia@protonmail.com. Because here at Odd Virginia,
we're ready to believe you.
I want to welcome 3 guests to Odd Virginia. This is the first time doing 3 guests at one time, but you all have stories about the exact same location, and this is something I've been hearing about for years. So, Sherry, Terry, and Dawn, welcome to Odd Virginia. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
It's really an honor to have you guys here. Dawn, your son Joe has been my best friend for, goodness, the past 12 years. And he's dropped little bits and bites of what we're going to be going over tonight. And it's always fascinated every time he brings it up. So if you'd like to, just before we get into that, give us a little bit about yourself, just for an introduction.
Okay. My name is Dawn. We moved here from New York in 1974. Moved into a house that had been more or less abandoned for 20 years before my father bought it. Before we saw it, he bought it. We came down from New York and were just kind of shocked, to say the least.
Yeah, I'd imagine. What was it about this house that brought you from New York to it?
Well, my aunt and uncle had moved from Long Island to Fishersville, and we came to visit them, and my father just fell in love with it here. And so he came from New York and looked for a house and bought a house, and then we came down, what, Sherry?
It was probably about a month.
A month later.
Yeah.
And we came with the U-Haul, and we had 3 cats that we lost immediately in the grass. I mean, the grass was that tall.
It was probably taller than you, if I remember right.
It was had not been mowed in
forever.
Years. Yeah.
When we moved down here from Northern Virginia, we also had the same sort of situation on our property where the grass was taller than I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were like, what did you move us to?
Sticks.
Yeah. I mean, coming from a nice suburb of Long Island to, where you had street lights and you came in when the street lights came on, and to pitch blackness, no neighbors in a haunted house.
Very cold. We were used to, thermostat heat.
Yeah.
There are pros and cons. You get starshine now.
Yeah.
So also, Dawn, you are a professional painter.
I am.
Uh-huh.
Been doing that for 17 years now.
Yeah. I do believe I've helped out once or twice with Joe and Matthew.
Yep.
Yeah. And Sherry, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Sherry, Dawn's older sister. Actually, I painted for Dawn for years, and now I'm a caregiver. After an injury, I couldn't paint anymore, so
yeah,
now I'm a caregiver.
As it goes.
Mm-hmm. Very happy with my new career choice. Yes, I do like sitting with the elderly. So that's what I'm doing these days.
What do you read to them, or?
You have to do everything.
Because for me, that's my dream job. I'd love to just be able to read to people for a living.
You actually have to do everything.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do all that. just the reading part.
But I like it.
Yeah, we have Terry here as well.
So I'm Terry. I am the daughter to Sherry, who you just met, and the niece to Dawn previously, and I'm the cousin to Joe. I work in dentistry. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So we're going to be talking about one house in particular tonight that Dawn and Sherry have had lots of experience in. And Terry, you've had even more experience more recently. So this is sort of like a continuous thing going on in the family.
Well, when we first moved into the house, there was doors everywhere. Don't remember there was doors everywhere.
There were.
You know, old farmhouses had a door for every room.
Yes.
It was easy to get lost in that house. It had an old staircase. And I think that's where our problem started, wasn't it, Dawn? We had an old staircase that went from the kitchen to downstairs. And my mother didn't want any parts of that staircase. So when they took the staircase out, evidently whatever was there before did not like that. And that's when things started happening.
So you moved in 74,
74.
Right? And then you started remodeling?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a very common thing when a house starts being tampered with.
Yes.
Every time.
Activity starts up. So that's when it all started for you. You didn't have any feelings or inklings or anything like that before that you remember?
No, we just hated the house.
Yeah. And we wanted to go home.
We wanted to go home. I mean, when I say this house was vacant, hippies had kind of squatted there.
Yeah.
They squatted in the house. And I mean, the kitchen, it was old plaster walls, and the floors were painted pink and gray.
It was bad.
The kitchen was spray painted like 17 different colors.
It sounds very ugly.
It was horrid.
It was awful.
And, you know, we came from, like
very
she said, a
nice.
very nice, and we were horrified.
And our only heat was a wood stove.
Yeah, that's
And
a
it
huge
was
difference.
Wood stove.
It was a
and
coal
big-
stove.
Yeah.
It was a coal.
stove. Yeah, it was not your dream home.
No.
My mother cried. I can remember my mother crying.
I
when
felt
we
the
got
same
there.
way when we moved down here, just because it was something new. I was 8 years old when we moved down, and I was like, what is this? Where
Yeah.
are we? I went from suburban.
Right.
I can go next door and knock on my next door neighbor's, front door and play with a kid,
Yeah.
to it's me and my bike in tall grass.
And nowhere to go
Yeah.
on that bike.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you moved in 74, started remodeling, and what really was it that told you that something was going on in this house?
Your dress, right?
Well,
Yeah. We
the
went to,
dress, and every time they did an improvement in the house, the curtains
would come down.
would come down.
Exactly.
and it wouldn't just like be falling off the rod. They would actually be taken down and laid across the bed.
Now, did this happen ever like in front of your eyes, or was it just you walk out of the room, walk back in, and they're like folded?
You would just go upstairs, and there they would be.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is, whoever was there didn't like those curtains, apparently.
Well, it was just more or less letting us know that they were there. But it was never anything vicious or vindictive. It was just to let us know.
Except for my communion dress. That's vicious.
Yeah, except for the communion dress.
So I heard about this mildly. I think when Joe was over here and we were on the phone with you, you talked about the communion dress. That was a very interesting story.
It is.
Sherry, would you like to share that with us?
Well, it was my communion dress, and I took it pretty hard. So we went to my aunt and uncle's house, and when we came home and we pulled in the driveway, we could see something white under the walnut tree. And we were all like, what is that under the walnut tree? So we got out of the car, and I was like, oh my God, it's my communion dress. And there it was laying under the walnut tree in walnuts. And of course, we didn't do that. Why would we?
It was lying basically buried underneath a bunch of walnuts.
You could see the white because that's what we saw when we pulled in the driveway. It was white shining under the tree
And where was it before it was moved under the tree?
in a cedar chest upstairs.
Upstairs in the hall. Yeah.
So it was taken out of the chest, dragged out into the yard, buried under walnuts.
Yes.
And no one knows how that happened.
No.
To this day, that'll always be a mystery.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
Well, a neighbor said, well, the Dunlaps that lived here, they didn't like Catholics. And I was like, that shouldn't have much to do with nothing.
And I'm assuming the Dunlaps are the people who actually owned the house before all the hippies.
Yeah, years ago.
Okay.
And I think from what we've heard, her funeral was actually inside the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was laid out in what is now
My
your living
living
room.
And I'm trying to parse things out just a little bit, thinking back. If you moved in the early to mid 70s, before that, you probably would have had beatniks hanging out in there.
Absolutely.
And this is, if I'm not wrong, this was in Churchville, right?
Mount Solon.
Mount Solon.
Mount Solon. Okay.
More Parnassus.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. But they had pop pants growing out of combat boots.
Yeah.
I could see that in Mount Solon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of trashed the place.
That and then I got to the point where I actually saw people. I woke up and there was a girl on my bed and I was shooing her. And she got up and she walked backwards and she was doing her hands like this. And she was walking backwards by Larry's door. And I started screaming. And then my parents come in, turn on the light, and she was gone.
Wow.
But I actually saw her and actually was doing this to her.
Was she kind of, engaging or interacting with you?
Just sitting on my bed. Like I'm sitting now. I'm on the bed and she's just watching.
Oh, so she was cognizant of your presence.
Sitting on the bed.
This isn't some sort of like residual haunting. This is something that is completely aware.
Yes.
In the present.
And I was doing this. Get off my bed, get off my bat. And she did. And like I said, she walked backwards and she was doing her hands like this.
Like she was nervous.
Yes.
Yeah, she was rubbing her fingers together.
And looking around.
Do you know about when you could probably date her based on her clothing?
Everything was white.
It was just all white.
Everything was
just
white.
like a white dress.
But she was young.
A little kid.
Very, not a big girl at all. I'd say preteen.
Okay. Huh.
I never saw anybody.
You never did. But
I never did.
You saw a lot of things happen.
Seen and heard. You would be downstairs and you would hear furniture dragging across the floor.
Yeah. How about knocks?
Knocks, walking up the steps, furniture being dragged. I never heard voices.
No, I don't think I did either.
No, I never heard voices. Just weird things. But furniture would move. Like in our bedroom, me and Sherry shared a room. And our nightstand would be moved to the center of the room.
Wow.
And you would hear it. We would all be downstairs and you would hear it dragging. You go up and there it is in the middle of the floor.
I've heard very often these sorts of things will occur in flaps, maybe over a couple weeks or a couple months and then calm down for a while. Was that the same?
That's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the absolute truth. And it would be non-eventful for a while.
Yeah.
And then it would come again. Like when I saw that man, there was a man over me when I was in the same spot in my bed. And he was like that over me. And my brother, who was not very brave, I was yelling, there's a man in my room. Everybody, there's a man in my room. And he's looking at me. And my brother yelled, how big is he? I was like, he's pretty big. And then again, he was gone.
That gives me the heebie-jeebies.
But it was like this.
A little girl is kind of non-imposing. When you've got a grown man with his arms crossed,
Looking down.
looming over you at night, now that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Well, my brother didn't come to help me.
Well, shame on him.
He just said, how big is he? I said, he's pretty big.
Was he also all white as an apparition? Or did he have some color contrast or black,
I I don't remember any color to it. I really don't. I can see, I don't know how to explain it because as I'm thinking about it, I can still see it.
Were they transparent, both of these apparitions, or were
They had to be. When I was swatting at her, she had to be. Because
you couldn't touch her.
Yes. And she got up. She did get up. Him, I didn't even mess with. He was looking down on me, and that was enough for me.
Well, how big was he?
He was a nice sized guy.
I probably wouldn't mess with that either.
And then he was gone.
What was his clothing like? Just out of curiosity.
What I'm visualizing, what I'm remembering is just white. You got to remember, it's in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of the night and there's no lights on.
Yeah, it's tough to tell in such a situation.
And then, well, of course, when people come and the lights are on, they're gone.
Yeah, turn on the lights and then they
They're
disappear
gone.
immediately. That's also a very common occurrence.
Yes, but he didn't move. Like I said, he was just folded and looking at me. She did. She did get up and move. And those were the two I saw in our room. And I don't think I ever saw anybody else in there. Besides, now, if you take like a picture or a video, remember, you'll get the white balls.
Yeah, the spirit orbs.
Oh,
They will show up.
they fly.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
There was a time that I was trying to do some, like skits or whatever at my old parents' house. And I was watching back the footage I had taken. I saw these things floating around. And for me, that was confirmation because I always felt like there was something looming over me. But, I didn't really, I could have just been psyching myself out and being, paranoid and scared little kid. But after seeing those balls flying all around me back on the video, I was like, oh, no, there's probably something that is actually hanging out around me that I can't see, because a lot of those cameras will pick up like ultraviolet spectrum, whereas your eyes can't see that. I noticed that one time when I was playing with the remote control for the TV. You press that button. If you look at it on camera, you can see that little LED flash on top of it. But if you look at it with your eyes, you can't see that flash.
Yeah.
So the cameras are able to pick up that ultraviolet spectrum.
Although my grandson did, when he was really small and I was in the bathroom, he yelled, "Mimi, what's these white balls going by me?" And my daughter to this day just is infuriated with me because I was like, they're not going to hurt you. They're just orbs. Well, that did it for him. And,
And now he's obsessed.
well, she was just angry because he was scared to go to bed.
What's an orb?
Right. And I don't have much of a filter.
Just no big deal.
Kids with their imagination, things like that can really get to them.
Yeah, they won't hurt you.
That's what I said. Right. And she said, thanks a lot. He's not sleeping. But I was being honest.
If you need someone to read him a story for bedtime, I volunteer. I love reading stories. But you had mentioned the name Dunlap, and I was curious about the history of this house. What do you know about the previous owners, if anything?
I really don't.
Not a whole lot. Just what I've heard from the neighbors, like with the Shiflets have told. I think there was seven children in their family. And I think he worked out of town from what I've heard. And so it was the wife and the kids at home while he was gone. Not a whole lot. That's about all I have known. Now, for years, they would drive by the house and ask if they could walk through the yard. Some of the children that were now elderly. And they did that, but they didn't really converse with us a whole lot.
Really?
I didn't really ask them any questions either. I just told them to do whatever they wanted to do.
It's a little walk down memory lane.
Yeah. And they used to get real excited. Just at some of the things that their dad had built and stuff like that. It was sweet. But I never
carved his name, his initials on the floor upstairs.
And I think that he did those hearts and the stars.
Gotcha.
Uh-huh.
And the eaves.
Yes. And the daughter was very excited. I heard her telling my daddy did that.
It sounds like you're talking about Lucky Charms cereal now. The hearts and the stars and the horseshoes.
Well, it
and
is.
The clovers.
Actually, they had an outhouse, which we don't use it for an outhouse. We have like a garden shed there, but it was it's got hearts.
But it was a two-seater.
It was a two-seater.
Well, when you got 7 kids.
A two-seater?
Yeah,
It was a two-seater. If you ever open up and look in there.
High-class outhouse.
Yeah.
Down.
That luxury outhouse.
Daddy did that.
It's sweet. Yeah, we just store stuff in it, but yeah, that was their bathroom.
Yeah, different times. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing an actual bathroom was installed later.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It had plumbing. I mean, it had plumbing when we bought the house. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not very good, but it was there.
Rudimentary.
It was an inside bathroom.
Yeah.
That took some getting to used to, really.
Yeah. But the house has come leaps and bounds now. The house is absolutely beautiful, but it was definitely a work in progress.
So it's still standing and inhabited?
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Sherry
in it.
lives there.
I live there.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me. You look it up and it was built in 1800. Not the 1800s, 1800.
On the dot.
On
Yes.
the dot. And you look at this house, my husband's a builder. So I always kind of look at structures of homes, and this house, the roof line is so straight. The house is so sound.
Yeah.
To be that old is just amazing to me. Good bones, had really good bones. It's a beautiful home now.
Someone did a good job on that.
Absolutely. But from where it was when we moved here to where it is now, it's unrecognizable.
And it's warm now.
And it's warm now. Yeah.
You're not still using the wood stove?
No.
No, it's still there, when the power goes out or something like that. But no, I'm not using a wood stove anymore. But
No, it is updated.
it was one cold house. You don't forget that.
No. I mean, we would actually scrape the frost off the inside of the window
Wow.
to see what it was doing outside. That's no exaggeration.
It was
See
cold.
when Santa was coming through?
Oh, it was just so cold. I mean, the house stayed cold.
It was, to the bone.
And do you think that is purely based on its insulation, or?
Oh, yeah, because
Yeah.
it had zero insulation and it had the original windows. I mean, the original windows that were horrible. Air was coming right through them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem I have in the room that we're in right now. Is it's an unfinished basement, so there's cold air leaks everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
That's something I'll be sure to fix here soon. But this is a good segue, because oftentimes in a haunted location, you will feel a huge swing in temperature. Was that ever something that you guys experienced?
I can't say that I have.
I don't know that you would have known the difference.
Yeah,
It was so
It was just cold all the time.
I mean, but you would feel a presence. I
Yeah.
mean,
The
I
hair on
could-
the back of the neck feeling.
I could absolutely feel a presence. You knew somebody was watching you.
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. All the time.
All the time.
But I guess since the house always was a work in progress, I mean, you would go so far with the renovation and then, take a break, recoup, get some more funds and then it would kind of stop in those in between. But the last big remodel was the kitchen. And that's when the activity started back up. And that was 6 years ago.
Oh, no, it's closer to 10.
Really? Has it been that long?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Evan was was he in middle school
No,
or high school?
no, they weren't in middle school yet.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so yeah.
It was a long time ago. You don't realize how fast time is going.
flies.
Yeah.
But then it really started getting active again.
So the really big stuff happened pretty recently then.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the kitchen was a pretty big. And when we tore out the stairs,
That was huge.
that was huge. Added the new bathroom.
Right. Now people will say, well, when you paint or something, I was like, no, it's not that. It's when you if you're
Disturb
disturb.
the structure.
Yep.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Time
no.
after time. That'll
Yes.
bring along the activity.
Because we were working one day, and it was while we were still working on the kitchen, when me and her were on a job site, when my daughter called. She was young at the time, and they knew they had to have the house clean before I got home every day. That's just the way it was. And my son was petrified, and she was screaming that they had cleaned up, and they went outside. When they came back, it was messed up again. And I was like, ignore it.
Yeah.
Just ignore it. It's fine. No, you don't understand. I was like, it's fine. It's just ignore it.
Oh, they were just making excuses. Yeah.
Well, I remember Evan saying that the toilet paper
Came down
the toilet paper actually like rolled down the hallway while he was sitting in the living room, and that the vacuum started without it being plugged in.
Whoa.
And that really had him.
There's a very soft spot in my heart for machinery working when it's not plugged into an electrical outlet. You hear about these sorts of things every now and then, and that always gets me like real hard. How is it generating power when it's not plugged in?
I had that happen to me. I was home alone. I don't know why I was home alone. But I heard furniture upstairs being moved, and I got on the phone. I called my best friend, Angie, because she lived right down the road, and I was terrified. And I was telling her, things are moving upstairs. The furniture's moving. I'm scared. And then we had a clock radio that we kept on top of the freezer. And all of a sudden, it just started blaring music, and which scared me even more so. And I yanked it. I unplugged it, and it still continued to play.
Oh my gosh!
And at that point is when I ran out. I ran out of the house.
I would too.
Yeah, and she met me. She lived about a mile down the road, and we would meet.
Yeah, that's absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, especially as a kid.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
That's actually similar to what I experienced. Not the same, but the radio kept turning on and off. And then so I got nervous. So I attempted to call Mom. And so I called her a couple times. She didn't answer. So I was like, screw this, you know? So I went outside and used the cell phone. I'm like, I've been calling you. And she didn't get any of my calls from inside, but she got it outside.
I remember that.
Yeah. And then even when I came back inside, the radio was still kind of messing with me a little bit. But yeah, that's funny.
Wow.
We had the same.
Yeah.
The same scenario where we're like calling someone else.
I forgot about that, Terry.
Yeah.
When you were adamant, you kept calling me and I checked the phone for redial. I was like, it's not even there.
I'm like, but I called.
I did forget about that.
Yeah, there's something strange going on with sort of an electronic disturbances, I guess you might call them. Oftentimes you'll hear about people having any sort of electronic device, whether it be a flashlight, a camera, and the batteries drain like that.
Yeah.
Just all of a sudden, in one of these spots, the batteries will drain. But then there's also these situations where something's working without it being plugged into any power source. I have no idea where that manipulation of energy comes from, but that's very fascinating.
Scary.
It's a bit scary. Well, it hasn't hurt any of us yet.
No.
That's just odd.
It did pick up my dad once and kind of push it out of the house. That was interesting.
Off the ground?
He said it lifted the back of his neck. And well, Terry was telling me, because this is when it was really messing with Terry. And I guess he didn't want to say it in front of her. So when she left, he said, she's not lying. I was like, what are you talking about? He said, it lifted the back of my neck and pushed me out the door.
Wow.
And I said, really? And he said, yeah, but he didn't want to say it in front of her because she was already afraid. So I said, be kind to me.
Yeah. I think in such a situation, that's the best thing you can do is just be like, hey, I'm here. I know you're here. Please don't do anything. Mm-hmm. Please be nice.
I would have days like that frequently. And then other days where it's like I was unfazed, you know, but at that time, it's not that I was scared, but it's like it wouldn't stop. And it was just like annoying and I guess semi scary, but not so much. It was more or less I was annoyed. And then that's when it happened to him. So
So what were they doing to you, Terry? Was it
I mean, just
physical contact, or were they just moving things around and making noise?
No physical contact, just like the constant like turning lights on and off. If I'm watching TV at night, it would just turn off the TV on me, like so much that sometimes I'm just like, whatever. And I would just walk away, like act like it didn't bother me. But it was, I had the back room where they took out the staircase, where the first staircase was taken out. So my bedroom was in the very back. So it's where that staircase used to be. My bed was close by there. So every night it always felt like someone was staring at me, to the point where I just got used to just turning my back to it. And I just slept towards the wall all night.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that feeling.
But I could never get any of my friends, like my friends would come over, but like no one ever wanted to stay the night for that reason. Cause they'd always
feel it too.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't had any, like all of my friends were like, something's up. You know, my fiance now, the first time he had came over the house, it kind of took him a minute and he admitted later that he didn't really like leaving the kitchen. Cause that's when you first walk into the house. because he felt like something was weird. But that wasn't the first time I heard it. I mean, no one ever wanted to stay over for that reason. But yeah, I mean, just stuff like that. It never did anything to me physically. I never saw anything. It just, I feel like, harassed me in other ways. And you could never get any dog to go upstairs. So my dog now, I thought for sure she just didn't like being inside the house, like, ever, because you couldn't make her stay inside that house.
She still won't, right?
Yeah, if you bring her upstairs, like, it doesn't matter. You try and get her up, she would refuse. She would just bolt back down the stairs to the back door, like, let me out.
And she's not normally a very scared dog, is she?
No, not at all. And so as soon as I moved out, it was just convenient. Then all of a sudden she turned into like an indoor-outdoor dog. Like, she enjoys being inside, like cuddling, things that I didn't think she was interested in. And still to this day, if I do, or if I have just tried to put her inside of the house, the first thing she does is go straight to the back door. And if she feels like you're not listening or she wants out that bad, she'll pick up something that she knows that she's not to, just so you'll like put her outside.
Yeah.
Like, see you later. I'm out of here. I mean, just stuff like that, really.
Yeah, dogs seem to be able to be very sensitive to these sorts of things.
And little kids, yeah.
Little kids as well. Well, I don't know what it is about little kids that they haven't like formed their vision of reality yet, and therefore they seem to be a lot more open to what else we're not quite able to see. But you hear about this a lot with little kids talking either to their deceased grandparents or to that weird man in the black hat, in their room. And you do hear about this over and over again.
I can't say I've ever been afraid, though. I don't think I've ever been afraid.
That's good.
I have been. Yeah, I've absolutely been afraid in that house.
Yeah.
Do you feel a sort of malevolence with this haunting?
I still am not comfortable really going upstairs.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe's told me the same thing. Just upstairs is very uncomfortable in that house.
And yeah, I don't know the history. I don't know what, something happened up there. I just don't know what.
And my room was pretty bad because
Yeah.
that's where the staircase was. So it just, I don't know. It was interesting.
And that's exactly what Shay said back there. She said there was always somebody staring at her.
all the time.
You could feel it. But
And
it's
I mean-
never bothered me. I
Yeah.
don't.
I'm normally not
Nothing
scared
like
to be
that.
alone or anything like that, but the one thing I always avoided growing up is being by myself inside that house. So like sometimes I would call mom and be like, "Hey, are you gonna be home?" And she'd be like, "No." It's like, "All right, I'll wait," because I just didn't want to be home alone because it was weird. Or when you walked in, I would immediately turn on the lights and I'd just stay in one area, just like look straight ahead, just because I don't know, I felt like someone was always just seeing what I was doing.
Yeah.
It was weird.
I've been in that exact same position where it's like, hey, we're gonna go out for dinner or something. Do you want to stay home alone, Alex? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And as soon as they're gone, I'm just like, oh no,
Yeah.
this was a mistake.
I'm out of here. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you turn on the TV, and that's usually the way out of it. Try to distract yourself somehow.
Now, my grandmother did see Mrs. Dunlap. Well, that's who the neighbor said she saw. Mrs. Dunlap. We were eating dinner, and my grandmother kept staring at the hallway, and finally she said, "Who is that woman?" And we all just kind of looked, and my mother said, "What woman?" She said, "That woman staring at me." And there was nobody there. I mean, we didn't see her, but she saw her and described her to a T. I mean, she was describing her as she was staring at her, and she said, she's giving me very nasty looks.
Oh no.
She had her arms crossed and just had a stern look on her face. She said she was heavy. She had a bun, right, Sherry?
She did say she had a bun. Yes.
She had wearing a bun and in an apron. And when she had told the neighbor this, and she said, "Oh, well, that was Mrs. Dunlap." And that's how we found out about Mrs. Dunlap, had her funeral there.
She was probably wondering, what are these darn kids doing at my table?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Oh, that's something. The full-bodied apparition, especially when they're looking disapprovingly, fascinating to me, because obviously they're seeing you in real time,
Yeah.
probably wondering what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
Like, who are these people invading my house having a nice little dinner? I didn't make those mashed potatoes.
And there was another time my father and brother were watering the cows. It was winter. It was really cold, and the hose was froze. So they were filling 5-gallon buckets, and they would fill them, set them in the barn to take them around back and dump them in. And my father filled one, put it down, and filled another bucket, and went to grab the other bucket that he had set down, and the bucket just lifted up and dumped.
I forgot about that. Wow. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right in front of his face.
Right in front of his face.
Wow.
And him and my brother, hauled ass into the house. And
That's right.
he didn't really believe us, I think, until that happened to him. You know, he was a non-believer.
Yeah.
And you are a non-believer until it actually happens to you.
Usually you need a face-to-face confrontation.
But he was like, I don't know. It just lifted and dumped.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And
Now, have you ever had any sort of inanimate objects move in front of yourselves? No?
well,
Turn on and
Yeah,
off,
that's
but
it.
not move.
Okay.
When Terry was telling me her story, do you remember when me and you were in the kitchen and you were telling me what all was going on, and all of a sudden that radio,
Oh, yeah.
but it wasn't like playing anything. It was like this.
yeah.
It got louder, and she's like, that's what I'm talking about right there.
Is it almost like it's on a
Like a
in-between frequency?
Yes,
And,
it
and the volume turns up and then back down?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not like a normal, like, hey, the radio's on. It's just like, I don't know.
And so Terry's standing at the bottom of the stairs. I'm coming up, and you can't stop me.
like sometimes they would go through periods where she just wouldn't let up. You know, it's like, God, yeah, I'm coming upsters and I'm just tired
And you
of this.
can't stop
Yeah.
me. I can still see Terry. I'm doing it. I'm
done with this.
Well, you go do it.
Yeah.
Now, my son said he saw someone in the living room that time, and it took him a while to get over it. And I have not brought this back up to him because I don't want to remind him of how afraid he was. But he said the person he saw was in a black hoodie. Remember? He said all black hoodie. And he had come down to use the bathroom or something, and it said he was young in the living room and had a black hoodie. And I said, it's fine, Evan.
That doesn't sound like it fits.
No.
No, not at all. That's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, everyone that's been seen before is more
White.
antiquated.
But it was at night. I don't know if he thinks I don't know, but I didn't draw attention to it.
Yeah.
He said it had a black hoodie, and that's all he would say.
Probably for the best not to make, a mountain out of a molehill with
So
that.
I did. That's
Yeah.
what I said. It's nothing. Don't even give it a thought.
Every single one of us has taken our turns of sleeping in the living room and refusing to sleep upstairs for a while. So
Now, have you guys ever given thought to maybe taking some sort of action when it comes to these things, as far as a cleansing, an exorcism, an investigation?
I went to. Actually, I was going to.
Yeah.
I was going to have a priest come out and bless it a couple years ago. And he went to another parish, and I just never followed through with the next priest.
Okay.
But yeah, I was going to do that. Now, all the crosses that I have, I've had blessed, and they're hanging.
Okay, so they're. In the
I had them
house.
blessed before I brought them home. But yeah, it was something I was definitely going to do.
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing if you actually do end up making that happen, how it goes, because sometimes it works and the house is calm. The noisy spirits are no longer making their noise, but in other times it'll make the problem worse, and it'll rile them up, make them angry. So yeah, that would be very interesting to hear about if you do end up going through with it.
I wish I would have, but he went to another parish now. But yeah, I did speak to him about it. And he said he would do it. And I said I'd have him over for dinner. And it just never worked out.
And a lot of times in these sorts of situations, people will end up doing something I think is not incredibly smart, which would be doing like a seance or a Ouija board or something like that.
Oh, no, there's one in the house. We want no parts of it.
No.
No.
Usually that'll also make things a lot worse.
didn't
I
it
don't
come
want
with
any-
the house?
No.
Oh, you guys bought it?
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want any parts of the Ouija board. No. And I think it was my mother that was playing around with that, wasn't she, Dawn?
Yeah.
And I was like, I want no parts of that.
And I remember them doing it, and I don't know. It spilled. I don't remember what it spilled out, but it spilled. I just remember I ran upstairs.
Yeah, I want no parts of that. And it was found in the closet years ago. Do you remember that, Terry? We were cleaning out, and it was a week, and I was like, "Don't anybody touch that. I don't want anything to do with that."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I just assumed it was always there for like so long. You guys just didn't.
Yeah, I've never played around with it because I don't want to.
What made
personally-
Grandma get it?
Who knows?
She was into that stuff.
Yeah.
Personally, I have no experience with such a thing, but from basically every story I've ever heard, it only gets worse when you try to do something like that.
Now, I don't know what the story was in the basement. I don't think any of us ever will, but it's an old rock basement, dirt floors, and there were chains in the wall.
Ooh,
We got rid of those.
like manacles? Like with the locking mechanisms for wrists?
They were
Ooh,
in the basement. Yes.
that is creepy.
They're gone.
Yeah, as they probably should be.
They're gone.
My.
We never knew the story on that one.
It was 3 sets. Yeah.
Wow.
That's one thing I'll never do is go down in that
No,
basement.
they got ripped out of the walls.
Almost immediately.
Well, I know where I'm going to be putting my sleeping bag when I come over.
Downstairs. Ooh.
Sleeping in the basement? Oh, that's bold.
I can still see us playing with them, remember?
Yeah.
Sticking our hand, because we were kids.
Yeah, we were.
But they're gone.
Yeah, put a timer on, see how long I last.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll never know the story on that.
Yeah, that sounds nefarious.
Right, because I wouldn't have said it was a rich farm. No. So it wouldn't have been a farm that could have afforded, could have needed
You
that kind of help.
You
This
don't
is what I'm
suspect
trying.
it was like a plantation house?
No.
I don't think so. I wouldn't think that. So I don't know the story of that. I really don't. But they were definitely there.
Then it could have just been a freak. Who knows?
Exactly.
Yeah, some people are into just weird stuff.
Yeah, it's not a basement. You'd
But
want
I mean, they had been there a long time because they were so rusted.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't workable.
I'm surprised they were still in there when you moved in.
Yeah. Well, they were barely hanging on. I mean, they wouldn't have worked, but they were still in the wall. Mm-hmm. It didn't take much to remove them. They had been there for so long.
There was one more story I remember distinctly hearing about this house, and it had something to do with a like a Nerf gun or a disc
gone.
shooter. Yeah, this one always got me.
Yeah. My brother, he could be
Mean.
not so nice.
Yeah, he was mean.
Shot us with the BB gun numerous times and would make us dance and make me and Sherry fight each other. And
Jeez.
yeah, and he had this gun. It was a rapid fire gun, toy gun, but it shot little plastic discs. They hurt because when it shot, it came out really fast and they hurt. And he was shooting me with it, and I was trying to run away from him. And finally, I just turned around and I yelled, "Stop! Stop it!" And one was coming right for my face, and it just stopped. It just stopped about a foot from my face. It just stopped.
Wow.
And then it dropped to the ground. And me and him just looked at each other like, what the hell was that?
Yeah,
What
no
the
kidding.
hell was that? I never had anything else like that ever happen. It was just freaky.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Did he ever try and shoot you again?
Of course.
Oh. So he didn't learn his lesson.
Yeah, no, but I just yelled, "Stop, stop," and it just stopped midair, and for about a second, and then just dropped to the ground.
That's incredible.
Very freaky.
Yeah. And, in a situation like that, I'm not even sure that it has anything to do with a ghost. It could just be a manifestation of your force of will.
Well, and I told Sherry that. I'm like, that doesn't sound anything paranormal. That was like a will.
Yeah.
Like, how freaky is that?
Yeah, you said
even-
stop and it stopped.
I said stop and it stopped. And me and him just looked at each other like, what the hell was that? Of course, we both ran at that point.
And this was the day that we realized that Dawn has superpowers.
But that never happened again. But yeah.
Well, try going out on the highway and just yelling "stop" at all the cars. See if it
I gotta
takes
really
again.
mean it.
Yeah. Use a little
When
emotion.
Dawn speaks, you better listen. But yeah, no, he would shoot us all the time, didn't he? Yeah. Dance.
Dance. Yeah, we did a lot of dancing. You better dance fast because he wasn't going to stop.
Is this why we don't see him at family reunions?
I think he's matured some.
I'd hope so.
But it's a very cool house. I will say that.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful.
It's a very cool house.
It's a beautiful house. It's a beautiful house.
So are there any more like fantastic occurrences? I know that, you know, the knocking and the noises and the furniture moving are probably pretty constant throughout, you know, the years. But is there anything just crazy like chairs turned upside down or stacked on top of each other?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, that's not ringing a bell.
Just furniture being moved.
Yeah.
And the curtains.
And
The
clothes
curtains.
being thrown out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My communion dress?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was always going to mess with me forever.
Yeah, that's incredibly strange, particularly.
Yeah, because no one ever had the answer to that one. You know, what would make it be out there under a walnut tree and under walnuts?
Yeah, I mean, we presume to know who is the culprit, but why is really the question there.
Right.
She didn't like Catholics.
That's what the neighbor said. Well, she didn't like Catholics. And I was like, well, that wouldn't exactly explain it, but
Not entirely, no.
no.
And that everyone has experienced something at some sort. Because I haven't had one friend that came in the house and was like, yeah, I think I'll wait outside, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that everyone's experienced something.
Destiny's afraid too.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to try to come check it out sometime if I could.
You absolutely could.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Just for my own curiosity's sake.
I'd love to know the history of the house. You're never going to know, you know, because it's so old. You'd never know.
And I'm not one of those kinds of guys who's going to use the methods that are normally used to find out such a thing.
Well, it's very time consuming.
Yeah. But I would like to just sit and stew and see what I feel.
Yeah.
You would have to go upstairs. Absolutely.
I don't want to. Everything I've heard. But I will.
Yeah, that's where you would want to go. I mean, that's where I was when those things occurred.
With the little girl and the man. Oh, boy.
But
Yeah.
now it's been years with me. Nothing bothers me there. Nothing. You know,
Do you still feel the feelings, the hair on the back of your neck and all that?
I don't know that even when that was happening, that it did that to me.
No.
But the being watched, do you still feel that?
I think that, yeah, you
Yeah.
can feel that, but it's not enough to bother me. I don't think it's ever alarmed me.
Yeah. It's nothing enough to unsettle you.
No, because I think if it wanted me gone, it would have ran me out a long time ago.
Well, you do have the advantage of being alive and having, you know, the ownership of the house and being in charge of that space. Whatever is there presumably wants that back. But, you know, they're not going to be able to. It's just not possible in their current situation.
Right, and it's totally different than it was
Yeah.
back in the day. Right.
Huge.
You know, right. So I think
So you think it's settled down a lot compared to when you first moved in?
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, I know so.
Well, unless you do something.
Right. Right. And there's no knocking out walls or anything
No.
anymore. No, it's just paint.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we do anymore is just change paint.
Yeah.
So I think it's settled with me. We're good.
Yeah, this is a remodeling that you guys have both agreed on.
And I think it's just people that haven't been there that feel it.
Yeah.
Where I don't anymore. Like you saying your friends or other people come, they can feel it. It doesn't.
They get the heebie-jeebies.
Yes. And I guess I've been there so long that it just doesn't do that to me. I can't say I'm ever nervous or
You just get used to it.
I think so.
That's what it is. Because when I moved out, like I kind of forgot about it, and then whenever I come back to visit, it's just kind of like whatever.
I'm going in.
Yeah.
It was, I'm coming up and you can't stop me. I am doing this. And I'm like, this is sad. Terry, you just go do it.
Sometimes you got to make your intentions clear.
Yeah, it was giving Terry such a fit there for a while. I mean, I felt sorry for her as well. I think everybody did.
It's just like if I walked into a room, like the lights would, like it's like there was always something, And it depended on the day if it bothered me or not. It's like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to stand that personally.
Yeah. I mean, you catch me on one of those days.
Well, and
it's
it
like,
probably
I'm
had
coming
fun.
upstairs.
I
Yeah.
had fun with you. It's like,
Yeah.
ooh, getting a rise out of this one.
Yep.
Yeah. But I always slept well, I just had a routine, turn my back and move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my husband, she's not lying.
Yeah.
She is not lying. It picked me up by my neck and put me out the door.
And sometimes I think that's exactly what it is they want, is to get that rise out of you. Try to evoke some sort of reaction. I don't know personally if they do feed on emotions or fear or anything like that. But it's a very prominent theory that they're trying to get that fear reaction out of you, because for somehow, energy vampires is what they would call that. Something that wants to take that fear and bottle it up and feed off of it for one reason or another. I don't know. I don't live on that side, but it's very much a prominent theory, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's all very interesting.
It is.
Especially to the non-believer, when you're saying things, they're just like,
They're looking at you like, oh, yeah,
whatever.
what were you smoking?
Right. And we wouldn't have known it had we not moved there.
No.
Because we didn't know that kind of stuff either. And then you learn in a hurry that it's definitely true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't really gone through quite so much as you guys have, but even with just that little bit that I have, it was pretty obvious right away. And so now I'll take people at their word. And sometimes you can tell someone's just kind of schizophrenic and crazy, and
Right.
And it's not too terribly hard to parse out. But yeah, these things do occur every day to many, many people. And this is why I have this show, so we can get together, we can talk about these things. You're not crazy. I'm not crazy. We've seen some strange things.
I do have one more.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen at our house. It happened at Judy's. Judy Fisher.
Oh, yeah.
John had, my husband, had built a house, a big remodel for a customer. Actually had the house moved and added some wings onto it. And well, she passed away, and her sister was selling the property, and she offered it to me and John. She wanted us to buy it. We loved the house. It was beautiful. And she had given me the keys. And so me, my other sister, Shauna, my mother-in-law, rode over there to take a look at it. And it was a beautiful house, wasn't it? It was
absolutely.
absolutely beautiful. And my sister was like, I don't know. House feels very cold. Doesn't feel like a happy house to me. And she had this old barn, but she had the barn converted into a party barn. It was such a cool barn.
Nice.
I mean, she put in the floor was a big dance floor. It had chandeliers, but from the
cool.
outside, it just looked like an old barn.
That's awesome.
So we were looking at the barn, but now, mind you, the house was completely empty. It had been empty for like 3 years. No furniture, nothing in this house. Other than down in the basement, there were some family portraits. And my mother wanted to look at another picture. And I said, well, I already locked the house up. And I said, no, that's okay. I'll go unlock it. But I'm getting ahead of myself on this. The first time we were there, I had bought her a hummingbird feeder, Judy. When she got sick, she had cancer. And I got it from Sunspots, and it was still hanging. The hummingbird feeder was hanging outside of the house. And I said, oh, there's the hummingbird feeder. I think I'm going to take it, but I got a hanger for it. I wonder where the hanger is. And then we went to the barn, and then when we came back to go back in the house, that hanger was on the mantle.
Huh.
Where it had not been just 15 minutes prior. And it was like brand new. It was still shiny copper. And I was like, where did this come from? And everybody was like, I don't know. We were just in this room. This was not here. This was not here. And my sister Shauna was like, don't you hear her? She's talking to you. And then I'm like, all right, that's enough for me. You know, I'm like, no, I don't hear her. And she said, you gotta just be willing. Listen, she's talking to you. She's telling you, you don't want this house. And this is your parting. Please take this back. I want you to have this, but you want no parts of this house. And she said, we're going to go outside and you need to talk to her. And I was totally freaked out.
Yeah.
So everybody goes outside and I'm just kind of looking around and I'm tiptoeing around like, hey, Judy, I know Shauna hears you, but I don't hear you, but I know you're trying to tell me something, but I'm taking this as a parting gift. Thank you. I love you. And I'm out.
Wow.
And I never went back to that house. But how freaky is that?
I'm curious. Did Shauna hear this with her ears, or was it more of an intuition thing?
I don't know. She said she heard her.
Yeah?
She said, you don't hear her? And I said, no, I don't hear anything, Shauna. She said, then you're not listening hard enough because she's talking to you. She doesn't want you to buy this house. It's not a good house. She wants you to take this. She brought this for you.
That is incredible.
And she's telling you, you need to leave. You don't want this house.
And I presume that Shauna grew up with you guys in the same house.
Not in that house. No.
No.
Was she known to be sensitive to these sorts of things before?
I don't know if she was or not.
I can't tell you that.
So nothing
She
that
was
you've
very
noticed.
spiritual.
Very spiritual.
Yeah, very spiritual. But I mean,
Catholic girl.
I mean, for that to just appear, I know people are gonna say I'm crazy, but
I remember.
I had 4 witnesses with me,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that was not here. This house it was empty. Nothing in the cabinets, nothing in the drawer. It was empty, and Judy had been dead for 7 years.
Was it that long?
Yeah,
Wow. Time goes fast.
yeah. But
yeah, you're right, because her mom and her sister were there.
Yeah,
You're right.
that lived there after she passed away. And I did. I ended up taking the hummingbird feeder and the hanger, and it's hanging at my house today.
There's something ironically very beautiful about that.
Absolutely.
The fact that she was looking after you from the other side.
Absolutely.
After what you had done for her, she was doing a favor in turn.
Yeah. And that's what Shauna said. She said she says she loves you, but you don't. This is a bad house. You want no parts of it, and she wants you to have this.
I love that story.
It's a good
really
one.
good,
Yeah.
But just so freaky. I mean, that was just so freaky.
It really is.
I came home and I told John, and he's like, "Oh, shut up." I'm like, I swear to you, your mother was there. And she's like, John, I was there. And he's like, oh, shut up. John's a
He doesn't want
non-believer.
to have it.
No. But that was very cool. I'll have to say that was very cool.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great story that we can end with, because we are now running out of time. But Sherry, Terry, and Dawn, thank you guys so much for
thank
coming down
you.
to the
Thanks for
studio
having
and
us.
It was a lot of
chatting
fun.
it up with me.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, it's been a good time.
Yeah.
Yep. I thank you again.
All right, well, good night, everyone.
Good night.
It was so nice to be able to have that conversation with Terry, Sherry, and Dawn. They're just a lovely bunch, a very tight-knit family, and I couldn't be more thankful to have them on the show this evening. And like I said at the beginning of the interview, my friend Joe had told me many stories over the years about the house that his mother grew up in, different little stories that she had told him. And he even told me about his own experiences in the house, how he would always get the creepy feelings, and he was afraid to go up the stairs and you could hear the footsteps up there. And I always wanted to ask Dawn herself, but I was a bit too shy. So it's great that we finally got to have that conversation after all these years. And as it turns out, Dawn's also a listener of the show. So Dawn, if you're listening right now, thank you so much for coming on the show. It really made my evening, and it really made this episode something great. But that's about all I've got to say for tonight, everyone. I just want to thank you for tuning in. Keep it odd out there, Virginia.